You're all skin and bones." The words weren't shouted. They didn't need to be. They cut clean through the late afternoon noise of the train station. Through the echo of rolling luggage, the hiss of brakes, the metallic announcements bouncing off concrete walls. The tall man who said it stood at least 6'5", shoulders stretching the fabric of his gym jacket, hands wrapped in faded boxing tape. He wasn't smiling kindly. He wasn't joking. A small crowd had formed the way crowds always do, slowly, curiously, instinctively sensing something about to happen. Across from him stood a man half his visual size. Calm, still, hands relaxed at his sides. "Did you hear me?" the boxer said, stepping closer. "You look like the wind could snap you in half." A couple people chuckled. Someone lifted a phone. The smaller man didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't answer. He only looked at the boxer with an expression that wasn't anger. It wasn't fear either. It was something quieter. Before this story goes any further, take a second to subscribe, because stories like this deserve to be heard. The train was minutes away. The tension was already here. And in 11 seconds, everyone watching would understand something they hadn't before. Something about strength, about ego, about what it really means to measure a man. But at that moment, all anyone saw was size. And that was a mistake. It had started 20 minutes earlier. The station was busy but not chaotic. Business travelers checking watches, college students dragging over stuffed backpacks, a mother negotiating peace between two restless kids. He had been standing near the platform map, studying the routes with quiet focus. Dressed simply, no entourage, no announcement of who he was. Just another traveler waiting for a train. The boxer had noticed him from across the hall. Not because he recognized him, because he didn't. To the boxer, strength had a look. Thick arms, broad chest, loud presence. The smaller man didn't fit that image. He looked disciplined, yes, but lean, controlled, contained, and to a man who made his living proving dominance, containment looked like weakness. The boxer had just finished a regional fight the night before. A win, technical knockout. His friends had celebrated loud and long. His confidence was riding high, bordering on careless. When he walked past the smaller man the first time, he muttered something under his breath. No reaction. The second time, he slowed down. Still no reaction. The third time, he stopped. "Hey," he said louder now. "You train?" The smaller man looked up calmly. "Every day." The boxer smirked. "Doesn't show." A few heads turned. The smaller man returned his gaze to the train map, and that, more than anything, irritated the boxer. He wasn't being challenged. He was being dismissed. The boxer wasn't a villain. He wasn't cruel by design. He was insecure. He had grown up fighting for space. In school hallways, in neighborhood parks, in gyms where respect came from bruises. Size had become his armor, power his language. When people looked at him, they saw intimidation, and that gave him comfort. But when someone didn't react, when someone didn't play along, it felt like erasure. "You think you're too good to answer?" he asked now, voice carrying further across the station. The smaller man finally turned fully toward him. "No," he said evenly. "I just don't see the need." There was no sarcasm in his tone. No bite, just clarity. The boxer felt heat rise in his chest. The crowd had thickened. Phones were out now. "You some kind of martial artist?" he pressed. "Yes." "What kind?" "Discipline." A few people exchanged confused glances. The boxer laughed. "That's not a style. It is if you practice it long enough." For a moment, silence hung between them. The boxer stepped closer, invading space, testing boundaries. "Tell you what," he said, "why don't you show us how strong discipline is?" The smaller man studied him. Not his size, not his shoulders, not his taped fists. He studied his eyes. And what he saw there wasn't aggression. It was fear of being invisible. "Why?" the smaller man asked softly. The question caught the boxer off guard. "Why what? Why do you need to prove something right now?" A ripple passed through the onlookers. This wasn't escalating the way they expected. The boxer scoffed. "Because you look like you don't belong in the same sentence as the word fighter." The smaller man nodded slowly. "And that bothers you." Don't twist this. I'm not. The train announcement chimed overhead. 5 minutes until arrival. The boxer felt the clock ticking, not just the trains, but the moments. A crowd only stays entertained for so long. Look, he said, louder, performing now. I'm not saying you can't train. I'm saying you don't look dangerous. The smaller man tilted his head slightly. Dangerous to who? To anyone. And is that what you want to be? He asked. The boxer hesitated. Just a fraction. I want to be respected. There it was. Not dominance. Respect. The smaller man's expression softened almost imperceptibly. Respect doesn't come from volume, he said. It comes from control. The boxer felt something in that sentence land heavier than a punch. But pride is stubborn. 11 seconds. The boxer said suddenly, you and me, no real damage. Just enough to see if you're more than bones. The station grew still. 11 seconds. The smaller man looked around at the faces watching. Curiosity, excitement, expectation. He could walk away. In fact, part of him wanted to. He had no need to prove anything here. But he also understood something else. Sometimes a lesson isn't about winning. It's about preventing something worse later. 11 seconds, he agreed quietly. The boxer grinned, relieved that the show would go on. Nothing below the belt, he said. No cheap shots. The smaller man simply nodded. They stepped into an open patch of platform space. The boxer rolled his shoulders, bouncing lightly on his feet. The smaller man stood still, breathing evenly. Ready? Someone from the crowd called. The boxer lunged first. Fast for his size, a straight jab meant to intimidate more than injure. And that was when everything changed. The first second passed with a blur of motion. The punch never landed. The smaller man shifted, not backward, not sideways exactly, but just enough that the glove cut through air. At the same time, his hand touched the boxer's wrist lightly, redirecting the momentum. Second two, the boxer stumbled forward a half step, confused by the absence of impact. Second three, a gentle but precise tap landed against the boxer's ribs, not hard enough to bruise, but placed with surgical accuracy. Second four, another redirection, another imbalance. The crowd's laughter faded. Seconds 5 through 7 passed in fluid motion, the smaller man never striking with force, only guiding, turning, stepping. The boxer swung wider now, frustration replacing rhythm. Second 8, a controlled sweep of the boxer's lead foot, not a kick, but a shift in leverage. Second 9, the boxer's weight betrayed him. Second 10, he found himself lowered to one knee, not slammed, not thrown violently, but placed there by physics he didn't understand. Second 11, a hand rested gently against his shoulder. Enough, the smaller man said. The station was silent. Nobody was laughing. The boxer looked up from one knee, breath steady but pride shaken. He wasn't hurt. That was the strangest part. He had expected pain if he lost, expected humiliation through force. Instead, he felt exposed. The smaller man stepped back immediately, giving him space to stand. No victory pose. No raised hands. Just calm. The boxer rose slowly. The crowd didn't cheer. They didn't mock him either. They were processing what they'd just seen. You didn't hit me, the boxer said quietly. I didn't need to, came the reply. There was no arrogance in it, only fact. The boxer flexed his fingers, replaying the movements in his mind. Every strike he'd thrown had been met with absence. Every push met with redirection. You could have hurt me, he admitted. Yes. Why didn't you? The smaller man held his gaze. Because that wasn't the lesson. The train lights appeared in the distance. The boxer felt something unfamiliar in his chest. Gratitude. As the train pulled in, wind rushing across the platform, the crowd began to disperse. A few people nodded respectfully at the smaller man as they passed. One older gentleman gave the boxer a firm pat on the back, not in mockery. In encouragement, the boxer stepped closer again, but this time without tension. What's your name? He asked. He told him. Recognition flickered across the boxer's face. You're that guy. I'm a student, he corrected gently. The boxer exhaled slowly. I thought strength was about impact. It's about choice. The doors opened with a hiss. For a moment, neither moved. I've been fighting my whole life, the boxer said, almost to himself. Feels like if I stop, I disappear. The smaller man studied him with quiet understanding. You won't disappear, he said. You'll just become more. The boxer gave a short, humorless laugh. That sounds easy. It isn't. The train conductor called final boarding. This was the moment that mattered more than the 11 seconds. The smaller man placed one foot on the train step, then paused. He turned back. If you ever want to train, he said, come to my gym. Not to fight, to learn. The boxer hesitated. Pride wrestled with possibility. In the past, he would have scoffed. But something about kneeling without being hurt, about being defeated without being damaged, had shifted something inside him. What if I'm not good at that kind of training, he asked. Then you'll finally start growing. The doors began to close. Wait, the boxer said. The smaller man met his eyes. I'll come. And for the first time that day, the boxer wasn't performing. He was deciding. 2 weeks later, the boxer walked into the gym. No crowd, no spotlight, just mats, mirrors, and quiet focus. He felt larger than everyone in the room, and somehow smaller at the same time. The smaller man approached, offering a respectful bow instead of a handshake. The boxer mimicked it awkwardly. Training began not with sparring, but with stillness, breathing, balance, patience. The boxer grew restless within minutes. Can we hit something? He asked. You are, came the calm reply. Your impatience. The boxer clenched his jaw. This would be harder than any fight. Weeks turned into months. The boxer learned to slow down, to feel his weight shift, to recognize tension before it exploded. He sparred differently now, not chasing knockouts, but seeking understanding. There were setbacks, frustrations, days he stormed out early, but he kept coming back. One afternoon, after a particularly balanced session, he realized something quietly profound. He hadn't thought about proving himself once that day. Not to the students, not to the instructor, not even to himself. For the first time, he felt present, not powerful. Present. Word of his change spread slowly through his boxing circle. Some mocked him, said he'd gone soft. He would have reacted once. Now he didn't. In his next match, something unexpected happened. He won, not with brute force, but with control. His movements were economical, his reactions measured. After the fight, a reporter asked what had changed. He paused. I stopped trying to be dangerous, he said. I started trying to be disciplined. Months later, he returned to that same train station, not to fight, to remember. He stood where he had once knelt. Commuters passed by, unaware of the shift that had begun there. He smiled faintly. Strength, he now understood, wasn't about making others smaller. It was about mastering the parts of yourself that needed to dominate. The smaller man continued teaching. He rarely mentioned the station incident, but sometimes when new students arrived full of ego and impatience, he would let the boxer lead warm-ups. They saw the size first, then they saw the restraint, and slowly they understood. Years later, the boxer opened his own training center. Above the entrance, he placed a simple phrase, control is strength. He taught young fighters not just how to strike, but when not to. He told them about a day he learned more in 11 seconds than in 11 years. He never described it as humiliation. He described it as mercy. Somewhere on some platform, another young man might be standing, feeling small, feeling judged, feeling the urge to prove something loudly. And somewhere else, someone larger might be mistaking silence for weakness. But strength doesn't announce itself. It waits. It chooses. It restrains. That day at the train station wasn't about winning. It was about revealing that ego collapses under control. That respect cannot be demanded. That real power is quiet enough to walk away. And maybe that's the part worth remembering. If you ever felt underestimated, or if you've ever been the one doing the underestimating, there's something here for you. Because sometimes the strongest thing you can do isn't to strike. It's to understand. From which part of the country are you watching this store?